So, good morning for me, good afternoon, and good evening for others. I am Carla Piranda from Brazilian Greens. I'm convener of GGWN with Alison, with Julia, with Jackie, with Anne-Marie, with Budil, with Lucy, with Dorothy, with Gloria Polanco in Global Greens, Women Networks. We are all co-conveners. We work together. I want to welcome every green woman. Thank you for your presence and invite you to continue with us in the DWN. Our meetings are always on the last Tuesday every month. And if you want to join the group, just let us know. There is a link and our contacts in the chat. I will put it now. That's it. Very welcome. Now let's hear Women of Global South with our wonderful panelists, Dorothy Nalubega, Afaf Etab. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
It's correct.
And Lucy Fazendo Bai. And our GG convener, Gloria Polanco, my dear friend from Dominican Republic, my partner. So go, Julia.
Thank you, Carla. I have just some technical details. Well, first of all, thank you so much to all of the panelists and also to Carla and Alison and Gloria for being here. And thank you very, very much to our interpreters. Maybe you have seen, you can click below here on interpretation. And we have 4 lovely people who are helping us with French and Spanish today. So yes, give them a big round of applause in the chat if you can. It's really great that they are helping us. And just a couple of things that you should note when speaking with interpretation. So it's important that you speak slowly and clearly so that really also your points are also clear in other languages. It's important that you try to use simple and short sentences, that you avoid difficult terms and expressions, and that you try to stay on topic, that you're not jumping from one topic to another, and try to avoid expert expressions or slang words or metaphors that might not translate too well into another language. I will copy all of these notes in the chat so you can also read them. Then, as Carla said, we will have a Q&A at the end. Please submit your questions through the Q&A button below, and then we will choose the questions. And now I'm handing over to Gloria, who is the co-convener of the Global Greens, who is moderating the event today. Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you very much, Julia. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening, because we have women around the world today. Thank you very much to connect with us. And where we account with wonderful women of influence that represent the African Green Federation for talk about gender justice that is very important today in Africa for us. And first of all, I would like to start this webinar not only by congratulating in this day. Do you hear me? Confirm if you hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Because I'm okay. It's because I'm into device can check the agenda. What I want to say is really not just congratulate all the women in this special day, but by thanking each woman who is here today and even those who are not, for your strength, your determination, and for persist in the struggle and the fight.
La lucha y los obstáculos que pueden generarse por la desigualdad de género.
Talk about today through our incredible panelists. without any more time to take, I would like to present our first speaker, that is Dorothy Nalubega. I don't know if I mentioned right, Dorothy. I'm sorry if I'm not. She's a climate change, a woman that fight in climate change campaign. She's an environmental woman and other vulnerable groups and right activist. A green economy institute trusted in change of gender. She worked with climate change and environment in Africa. She's a coordinator for Global Greens Women's Network, and founding chairperson is Africa Green Federation, executive director and ecological party of Uganda. Thank you very much, Dorothy, for being with us and share all that you know about this topic. I give you the word.
Yes, thank you very much, Gloria. Thank you, our organizers, the conveners, and thank you everyone for coming. Like she's already introduced myself, so I'll go straight to the presentation. I would like to say that the world has got many problems these days that affect everyone. But among the people affected everywhere, there is this gender that is affected mostly, and that is the women. And it's a shame to say that even in the global north, where we would think that things are okay, there is still this thing of gender justice is lacking, though it is worse in Africa. But for this particular day, I'm going to talk about Uganda, my country. Yeah, in Uganda, like everywhere else, Uganda is a signatory to the Convention on Elimination of all forms of discrimination among women. But it is also, its constitution has Article 33, which talks about women's rights. But I say it talks about it because it is just on paper. It is not in practice. And this is why. I'll start with this thing today, which is gender equity. This gender equity is a campaign theme which was chosen for today's International Women's Day. And I love it. The reason I love this gender equity is because, to me, gender equality, which they talk about so much, is only when you say everyone has a right or equal rights to get a mango from a mango tree. You say everyone has a right to get a mango from a mango tree. But for gender equity, when that mango tree is tall and Dorothy, for example, is short, and Dorothy cannot reach that mango tree, you have to provide a ladder for Dorothy to reach that mango tree. To me, that is equity, and that is what we are lacking. And for in other words, if you say all the women have equal rights like men to go for the jobs, you have to provide, for example, breastfeeding rooms for the women. To me, that is gender equity. The other thing about gender justice in Africa is social justice. There is no social justice in Uganda when it comes to women's health and education. There is high rate of maternal mortality due to lack of facilities in hospitals. Women die while in queues waiting to give birth. In Uganda, when you're pregnant and you go to antenatal, they tell you on your day of delivery, please come with gloves and cotton and that plastic paper which you put on the bed to help you. And if you're having labor pains and you go to the hospital and you don't have those things, no one will touch you. So women end up dying in the queues waiting to deliver, because not all women can afford to have to buy gloves for themselves and cotton and those other things. So this is very, very unjust for me, and there is no gender justice at all. And you cannot blame the nurses. Why? Because you don't expect them to use their bare hands to help you deliver. You have to blame the government, which does not provide those things. There is also land ownership in Uganda. In Uganda, there are no rights to land ownership for women. Women are not allowed to inherit land. Everyone knows that in Uganda, like any other parts in Africa, women provide almost 70% of the workforce on the land. But the produce that comes out of the land, it is men who decide what to do. Imagine you tilt your land, you grow crops, and when the crops are ready, the man sells them and decides what to do with that money. That's not fair. Those forms of injustices must go. And the last thing I'll talk about is representation. In Uganda, women are allowed to stand for any elective position in Uganda, but it is not possible to compete with the men because the ground is not leveled at all. You cannot compete with the man. Everyone here knows that in politics, you have to have time and money to prepare for your campaigns. How can you compete with the man who just wakes up, gets the breakfast that you've prepared and goes to prepare for the campaigns, while you, because gender construct and the culture in Uganda dictates that it is the role, it is the responsibility of a woman to look after everyone at home and to do the house chores. You look after everyone in the home, including your children and your firstborn, your first baby, that is your husband. Tell me, why will you get the time to prepare for the campaigns? And even during the campaigns, I mean, during the political rallies, the people, instead of asking you what you're going to do the constituents, like they ask men, they will ask you, they will start asking you about what kind of dresses you're putting on. They will expect you to put on a traditional wear like I'm putting on, and it's complicated. And then the next question they'll ask you is, are you married? And such irrelevant questions that will not help the constituents at all. That's why you find that many positions are dominated by men, because we cannot have the time to compete with them. And it's not only in those electric positions, but also the leadership in internal politics. I want to tell you today that in Uganda, of the 26 registered political parties, it is only our Green Party, Ecological Party of Uganda, that has a female Secretary General of all the 26. Anyway, this gives me joy because that shows that the Greens are different from other political parties. But it's also sad that it's only one party, our party, that has a female leader like that. Leave alone representation in political or elected positions. There is also representation on international conferences or other decision-making forums. There's so many, but because I'm a climate change campaigner, I'll choose climate change. At climate change conferences, it is always dominated by men. Even after the gender action plan was passed during COP23 in Bonn in Germany, still the men dominated. It is only Green Economics Institute, as I looked, that had a very good gender balanced delegation at COP, because for Green Economics, it had women represented, it had LGBTQs represented, it had youth represented, so almost the genders were represented at COP. So with that, I want to conclude because we don't have much time. I want to conclude by saying that I remind all the world that women are the pillars of sustainable development goals, which the world is thinking about to get. You cannot achieve sustainable development goals without involving the women. But women cannot act if they don't have gender justice. Therefore, world leaders should ensure policies that will bring about gender justice. Bring gender justice, and we shall show you that the women have the power to change the world, that the women have the power to solve the world's problems. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Dorothy, for sharing with us about this topic, social and gender justice in Uganda. But above all, you have said something very important, how the Greens embrace and raise our voices so that women have equality in represent our nations. Thank you very much for your intervention. And then we have a second panelist. And today we have a special guest invited to speak from Hassa Second University of Casablanca, Morocco. She's the Afaf Etei. Sorry if I not pronounced your name as it is. Okay, where she is a professor and specialized in women and gender and the analysis of feminist discourse. She has present and published extensively on women rights in North Africa as a Muslim woman. And today she will be speaking of gender stereotype and sexist stemming from patriarchal representation, as well as gender basis and discrimination. Thank you very much, Afa, for be here with us and share this important topic with us.
Merci beaucoup, merci à vous, merci pour l'organisation de cet événement. Voilà, donc mon intervention s'intitule « La justice de genre au Maroc, de la singularité du contexte à l'universalité des droits humains ». Et comme ce titre le dit, mon intervention va se focaliser sur le cas marocain, mais comme cas représentatif d'un pays africain, d'un pays arabe, d'un pays musulman, où on a des spécificités locales du contexte, mais qui par là sont communes à d'autres parties du monde, mais aussi de présenter la problématique de vouloir concilier tout le temps entre ce qui est local et honorer en même temps des engagements que le Maroc a vis-à-vis du monde et des traités internationaux sur les droits humains qui ont été signés. Voilà. Donc, je ne sais pas qui dirige les diapositives pour qu'on avance. Je ne sais pas si j'ai la main. Voilà. Et donc, je voudrais revenir sur ce que j'ai retenu de la définition de la justice de genre. Donc, la justice de genre, telle qu'on la conçoit ici au Maroc, c'est une priorité donnée à l'égalité entre hommes et femmes par rapport aux questions de droit, des pouvoirs et des ressources. Concrètement, et ça c'est important, de dire finalement derrière cette justice de genre, qu'est-ce qu'on attend? Eh bien, on attend que les femmes puissent sentir au quotidien une dignité, se sentir autonomes et à l'abri du besoin et finalement participer à apaiser chez elles ce sentiment de dépendance et de peur, parce que la peur est aujourd'hui dans beaucoup d'endroits dans le monde une émotion des femmes dans les catastrophes naturelles, dans les guerres, mais aussi dans des situations parfois du quotidien quand il est question de violence à l'égard des femmes. Et donc, le travail politique qui se fait au quotidien, il vise une instauration de l'égalité de genre pour combattre les stéréotypes de genre et les formes du sexisme qui sont des représentations patriarcales et qui malheureusement persistent. Et donc, il y a un travail, si vous voulez, éducatif à faire. Il s'agit de militer pour protéger les femmes contre les violences, comme je l'ai dit, rendre accessibles les services de justice, parce que même si on a des lois, parfois les femmes ont du mal à accéder même aux instances qui leur permettent de faire un dépôt de plainte ou d'entamer une procédure juridique. Et je pense qu'on a ça aussi en commun avec d'autres pays, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, les femmes n'accèdent pas, comme on le veut, à la prise de décision et aux positions de pouvoir. Et par rapport à cette question, je voudrais dire qu'il ne faut pas concevoir cette prise de décision ou ces positions de pouvoir comme étant seulement le fait d'encourager ou de mettre en œuvre des politiques pour que les femmes arrivent à des hauts positionnements, mais parfois, malheureusement, la question de la décision et du pouvoir concerne le quotidien de la femme dans ce qu'elle va manger, ce qu'elle va porter, est-ce qu'elle va aller à l'école ou pas, est-ce qu'elle va travailler ou pas, est-ce qu'elle veut avoir des enfants ou pas. Et donc, voilà, c'est l'éventail de ce champ, si vous voulez, de militantisme sur la question de la décision et du pouvoir. Elle est trop large et donc nécessite un travail colossal. Je peux passer à la question suivante. Et donc, moi, pour résumer un petit peu la situation au Maroc, j'ai préféré partir des combats féministes qu'on a au Maroc, qui du coup nous donnent une idée rapide sur la mosaïque de ce qui compose aujourd'hui la complexité du travail sur l'égalité de genre. Au Maroc, on a trois types de féminisme. On a un féminisme laïque, c'est-à-dire c'est un féminisme qui est pour une séparation du politique du religieux. C'est un féminisme qui a commencé après l'indépendance et qui continue, qui a évolué avec le temps. Mais après le printemps arabe, on a assisté à un autre type de féminisme qui est plus imprégné d'une idéologie islamiste franche. Et ces mouvements-là, ils sont plus pour un féminisme ou des droits de la femme qui ne reconnaissent en fait que la référence religieuse, en l'occurrence le texte coranique et les hadiths. Et puis, il y a un troisième mouvement qui est islamique, qui se dit être un mouvement qui est modéré, qui va en fait être critique par rapport au mouvement islamiste et qui va être un peu dans la posture un peu réformatrice où on appelle à une relecture des textes. Voilà un peu le panorama qui permet du coup de comprendre aussi ce qui se passe aujourd'hui dans la société marocaine et qui du coup, pour le travail de militante, fait que on a des débats à chaque moment en fait de l'histoire où on veut procéder à des changements majeurs par rapport à la question de l'égalité de genre. Je pense qu'on peut passer à même la suivante parce que je crois que ce développement a été fait. Et donc, voilà, là, j'ai choisi de vous parler de 3 moments importants justement des réformes au niveau des lois qui ont été faites au Maroc. En 2004, par exemple, 2004, c'était l'année de la promulgation du nouveau Code de la famille qui a été considéré comme un véritable changement dans la société marocaine, puisque là, on passe d'un ancien droit qui était qu'on appelait le Moudawana, qui était plus général, à un code de la famille où il s'agit de donner plus de droits à la femme, de mettre la femme au centre des réformes par rapport à des questions qui étaient qui concernaient la femme directement, comme le mariage, le divorce, la filiation, etc. Puis en 2011, dans le contexte du printemps arabe, on va, si vous voulez, en synergie avec ce code de la famille, proposer une nouvelle, adopter une nouvelle constitution qui, encore une fois, met l'égalité homme-femme en droit et en obligation comme principal objectif de l'État marocain. Et la nouveauté, c'est que lors du discours du trône de Sa Majesté le roi Mohamed VI en 2022, le roi reconnaît dans ce discours royal, bien sûr en reprise de ce qui se passe dans la société, qu'il y a eu des défaillances dans l'application du Code de la famille et il appelle à réformer en fait ce code de la famille. Et ça fait maintenant, depuis l'été dernier, que la société marocaine est en plein chantier pour faire des propositions et apporter une réforme qui est conforme à la fois aux traités internationaux que le Maroc a signés et qui soit aussi conciliante de ce que veut la société, c'est-à-dire un respect des traditions culturelles marocaines et un respect des règles de l'islam. Et la tâche n'est pas simple. Je ne sais pas par rapport au temps, oui, je vais être rapide. Je donne un exemple de ce qui a été fait et de ce qui a été problématique. Au Maroc, par exemple, la question de la polygamie a été une question très discutée et lors du nouveau code de la famille, on s'est dit il faut une solution. Et qu'est-ce qu'on a fait? On a mis la polygamie sous un strict contrôle judiciaire. C'est-à-dire qu'un homme qui décide de prendre une deuxième femme, on doit lui demander un dossier qui justifie en fait le recours exceptionnel à la polygamie. Sauf que, en réalité, à l'application de ces nouvelles lois, on trouve que on les soumet en fait à la discrétion du juge, mais on trouve qu'à 70%, le juge dit oui. La même chose pour le mariage mineur. Le nouveau code de la famille a levé l'âge du mariage légal au Maroc à 18 ans. Oui.
Could you talk a bit slower for the interpreters?
OK.
Merci.
Donc, on a un autre exemple de ce qu'a apporté le code de la famille, c'est la question du mariage. Je disais, le mariage pour l'âge de 15 ans, avant, on avait beaucoup, surtout dans le monde rural, on mariait beaucoup les filles avant l'âge de 18 ans. Donc, le nouveau code de la famille est venu mettre l'âge légal à 18 ans. Mais on a encore une fois...
18. But there was still an exception. It was still possible to ask the judge to get an authorization. And here again, we can see that in 70% of the cases, the judge agreed.
on trouve que l'application du code de la famille au quotidien trouve une résistance au niveau déjà de la société, parce que la société continue ses pratiques. Et puis, on considère aussi que par rapport que le système au niveau juridique est encore un peu...
And the legal system doesn't change very fast. So that's why we are still thinking at the moment about what we can do and what we can modify in this family code. So this is in this slide.
Donc, il y a un problème éternel en fait de la dialectique tradition-modernité. Et on va assister à chaque fois qu'il est question de réforme à un retour des grandes questions. Et il y a eu à chaque fois de l'histoire du pays une question qui faisait fixation. Et parmi les questions qui font fixation dans le débat actuel, c'est la question de la succession et la question de l'héritage. Parce que autant dans les traités internationaux et le fait de s'inscrire dans des droits universels, il est évident qu'une femme doit hériter comme un homme. Sauf que dans le texte coranique et le texte religieux, qui est la première référence dans la société, mais même aussi en droit au Maroc, la femme hérite la moitié de la part d'un homme. Et ça, c'est un texte clair. Et puis, il y a aussi une pratique courante en islam. Là encore, il y a des textes qu'on appelle, excusez-moi, ça va être intraduisible, qu'on appelle tasib, et qui veut dire en fait que lorsqu'on est une fratrie, dans une famille, si vous ne faites que des filles, les filles n'héritent pas. Ça veut dire que hérite une partie minime, mais que la grande partie ira au profit d'un parent masculin. Ça peut être un cousin ou un oncle, mais ça veut dire si vous êtes une fratrie de 12 filles, même avec un nombre comme ça, vous n'héritez pas, vous n'êtes pas prioritaire dans l'héritage de vos propres parents. Et donc voilà, ça c'était un exemple de cette égalité de genre, de cette justice. Il n'y a pas plus d'injuste, je pense, que d'être la fille et de se dire qu'on n'a pas droit à la propriété de ses parents. Parfois, c'est la maison où on a vécu qu'on doit partager avec, ou donner, ou partager avec un cousin lointain, ou souvent, c'est des personnes peut-être qu'on n'a jamais rencontrées de sa vie et qu'on rencontre à l'occasion d'une succession. Voilà, donc je vais là rapidement parce que je pense pouvoir... Ben, c'est ça, je pense que je pourrais faire une conclusion déjà parce que je pense que j'ai épuisé les 10 minutes. Là, l'état actuel, je pense qu'on reste là sur cette diapo. L'impératif aujourd'hui, c'est qu'à tous les niveaux, que ce soit politique, académique, militant, qu'on adopte une approche intersectionnelle et que l'on prenne en compte, en fait, par rapport à chaque question de la question de genre, toutes ces particularités, en fait, de la femme marocaine. Ça peut être la classe sociale, ses choix politiques, son emplacement géographique, sa religion, l'ethnie, la race, les âges et bien d'autres facteurs, parce qu'en fonction des régions, il y a à chaque fois des spécificités qu'il faut prendre en charge. Par exemple, la question de la langue, bien qu'on soit un seul pays, on est un pays de diversité. Pour rendre la justice accessible, il a fallu penser à une infrastructure dans les régions du Maroc les plus éloignées pour que les femmes puissent trouver des instances à côté de proximité. Mais là encore, ce n'était pas réglé parce qu'il y a beaucoup de régions au Maroc qui ne parlent pas l'arabe, qui parlent l'amazigh. Il y a aussi des dialectes au niveau des régions du Maroc. Et donc, on est en train de former à des métiers sociaux ou dans les langues parlées au Maroc. Et ça, c'est un grand effort qu'on est en train de faire aussi. Sans doute, cette année, depuis le discours royal, c'est une année de la femme au Maroc. Et ce printemps, cette année est un printemps féminin. Je suis contente de le partager avec vous sur ce magnifique réseau et je souhaite bon courage à toutes les militantes féministes dans le monde en ce jour de 8 mars. Merci beaucoup. Merci aux interprètes. Merci pour la traduction.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Afa, for telling us about all this reality that women go through. I think is make us aware of the importance of the work that you do as a research and teacher. And thank you very much to be with us today and share with us these important issues and information that we have to put in practice with some actions. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to introduce our third speaker, that is Lucy Kagendo. She's MBA, is the Gender Secretary as the Green Congress of Kenya since 2016. She's an environmental activist and program officer as the Green Dimension Network. Lucy attended Starmore University, where she studied administration and management. She has extensive experience working with an organization that advocates for climate change, mitigation, and adaptation, and food security. She is a founder of Adopt a Tree for School and Kitchen Garden for Kenya School at Home to promote awareness and issues in reading culture and climate change. In the party, she's working with the formation of the persons with disabilities. In 2020, she worked with Talent Accelerator Fellowship participant, and she's actively participate in different scopes and was recently nominated to be a co-convener for a Global Green Scope 27-28, working with group. Thank you very much, Lucy, to be with us. I give you the word.
Thank you so much, Gloria, for that wonderful introduction. Alison. So, ladies and gentlemen, next one, please. Next one, please. Ladies and gentlemen, and dear colleagues, I am very pleased to be with you as part of the Global Greens webinar panelists to talk about the gender justice in Africa and share more on Kenyan journey and experiences. Happy International Women's Day to all of you here today. Next. So I'll start with what is gender justice. So the term gender justice best signifies our intersectional approach that centers on the diverse needs, experiences, and the leadership of people most impacted by the discrimination and oppression. This approach helps achieve both equity, that is the equity distribution of resources, access, and the opportunities, and the equality, that is equal outcomes for us. Next. So what's the importance of the gender justice? So gender equality requires equal enjoyment by women and men of socially valued goods, opportunities, resources, and rewards. Whether gender inequality exists, it is generally women who are excluded, disadvantaged in relation to decision-making and access to economic and social resources. Next. Also, the Millennium Declaration and the 8 Millennium Development Goals collectively allowed to a vision for more just and equal world, social, political, and economic equality for women is integral to the achievement of all Millennium Development Goals. Hence, gender justice entails ending the inequalities between the women and men that are produced and reproduced in the family, the community, the market, the state. It also requires that mainstream institutions, from the justice to economic policy making, are accountable for tackling the injustice and the discrimination that keep too many women poor and excluded. Next. How do we go about this? So women and the adolescent girls are the most vulnerable groups in Kenya. They are particularly vulnerable to poverty, especially if the household and community are exhibited by gender-based violence, harmful culture, attitudes, and beliefs around gender roles, norms, and the female empowerment that we get here in Kenya. So the girls and women in Kenya hold unlimited potential. However, the barriers that constrain them are multifaceted, with issues like the gender-based violence remaining decades, of course, after independence. Women here in Kenya are still underrepresented in decision-making processes at all levels. The women and the girls still depend and spend long hours collecting water, firewood, and as well as carrying out her household chores, limiting the school attendance and work options. Just like Dorothy was saying, even in Kenya, we face the same issues. Next. They have less access to and control over the benefits from land tenure, also education, employment opportunities. Their increased contributions are needed to help Kenya reach their development goals. So in Africa, women leaders and entrepreneurs have already proven so many different ways to be really unstoppable in terms of how much progress they are driving and the inspiration they are giving. But we are still very far, and I see very far because we are yet to get there. Next. For example, we see that we have had 5 African countries with women as heads of state, just 5. Governments and cabinets are trying to be more gender balanced in several African countries and also in Kenya, but we are still far. And we say, try. That's, mark my words, I say try, because we are still far. And we keep pushing. We cannot say we'll stop at this. Women in Africa are most so in Kenya, where I come, they are excluded from the economy. Yet women make up 58% of the African self-employed population. However, they make on average 34% less money than the men do, which is very unfortunate. Next. In Kenya, women are still underrepresented in decision making, and we need to figure out the best way to make sure they are more represented. We have a constitution that is enabling gender equality, but constitution is just a piece of paper if it's not implemented. For example, we have the 2/3 gender rule, representation in all government positions. I will still call on the women to support fellow women in elective seats. We make the largest percentage of voters, so we can make a change. Yet we are still struggling with all this. It's very unfortunate. In addition to tackling gender inequality, Kenya's 2010 constitution also called for the devolution of government, with financial and administrative autonomy transferred to the 47 county governments. This was intended to bring government services closer to the people and then address the needs of the minorities and the women. Unfortunately, it has been 10 years since then. This reform was implemented in 2013. The big question is, are we achieving it? I think we are not. We are still far. Next. The results have been slightly disappointing. While there has been increased participation, we see that the representation and responsiveness to women has remained exceptionally low. And if you look at the numbers, even when it came to the last election, the number of women who were elected into offices was still very low. I actually had a chance to also vie for a seat. And I was saying Kenya running for an office is exceptionally very expensive. It's not easy. If you do not have the financial backing to do so, chances are that you'll not even be heard. It's a challenge we are yet to get out of. So out of the elections we had last year, out of 290, the women only got 28 elected. Nominated, we got 5 out of 12. The 47 women representatives, which is just a seat that is meant for women. And then we have the Senate, which we had only 3 elected members out of 47. The governors, out of 47, we managed to get 7, which is a trial, but I think we can do better. And also we had the member of parliament of the county governments, which still the women could not gather many of them. So we are still far, and we hope that the members, the voters, can be able to vote more women. Next. We need the goodwill of the government, support, voters, political parties when we go to vote. I think women have proven to be better leaders even given a chance. Women-owned businesses in Sahara Africa will only estimated 1% of public procurement contracts. They really need to have access to this and the supply chain where they can be part of the economy of the formal sector, as well as their presence in the informal sector, which is very important. Next. We must also recall the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic, the effect of the crisis and the climate emergency. These exacted the highest price on the women and girls. We know they are exacting a very high price on the women and the girls in Africa. With the drought, like for example in Kenya, now we are experiencing one of the worst droughts for a long time. We also have poverty, violence against women, which has skyrocketed through COVID, but also in relation to poverty and discriminatory laws that have continued to be fought. Generally, they feel that they are excluded from being part and parcel of their own societies. And this is very unfortunate. Next. Another good example of this is that even though women make up to 80% of the farm laborers and manage 40% of the country's smallholder farms, they only own about 1% of the agricultural land. So that makes the women, the income they can be able to get is very limited. The girls and women in Kenya hold unlimited potential. The barriers that constrain women, issues like gender-based violence remain persistent decades after independence. Women are underrepresented in decision-making processes at all levels. The women and girls still spend long hours collecting water and firewood. Also chose limit school attendance and work options, which is very unfortunate in the 20th century. I think this is something that we need to tackle and deal with. The increased contributions are needed to help reach their development goals. Next, please. Next. So what can we do? So I think we need to create opportunities to redress these, including ensuring that we have special measures so that women become part of the decision making. So we need to look at quotas for women, not only in decision making in government, but also in the private sector. I think that is very important. We also have need access to the digital technologies is very important for the women, especially for their education, their entrepreneurship, for their information, their health, and the services that they need to be able to become more empowered and more involved in the society. This is very vital. Next. We also need to create safe spaces for women and girls so that they can live free from the gender-based violence. We also need to increase women access to credit facilities and market opportunities for the African woman. Increase the participation of women in decision and policy making at all levels, starting from the grassroots, going to the top levels. So we also need to see like more women standing, vying for also the president, the vice president, the MPs, and the people. And that's women coming together so that we can be able also to vote for them and support them. Ensure women participation in the peace building, conflict prevention, and mitigation processes, which is very important because I think we make the most percentage of the human race. So we need to be involved, and we are the mothers. So, when you talk to a woman, it's like the information you give, you're sure that the whole family will get to get the information. And like the men, I'm not saying they don't pass information, but I think we are more good, we are better messengers compared to the men. So I think it's very important. Then we also need to narrow gender gaps in education, training, and employment. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Lucy, for sharing with us about this important topic in Kenya. Now, we have just a few minutes and we want to open the box of questions. If anyone want to ask our panelists some questions, this is the moment. You can put in there in the box, and then let me see.
I can pipe in a bit just to give people time to put their questions into the Q&A. I'll just start with a question. J'ai une question pour Afaf, s'il vous plaît. J'ai trouvé votre intervention très, très intéressante. Et au sujet de l'héritage, vous avez parlé des familles de 12 filles et la manière dont l'héritage passe au profit d'autres parents masculins comme des cousins, des oncles. Mais y a-t-il des situations où le père préfère avoir des héritières au lieu d'un héritier qui n'est pas son fils?
Je ne sais pas si je réponds maintenant ou j'attends. Je réponds maintenant, c'est ça?
Oui, parce qu'il n'y a pas d'autres questions.
D'accord, merci. Merci pour la question. Alors, la question du tassib, c'est comme ça le nom religieux qu'on donne à cette pratique, en fait, qui donne la priorité de la succession au premier, si vous voulez, parent masculin de la lignée. Alors, bien sûr, la loi n'interdit pas qu'un père choisisse par testament de donner son héritage, à ses filles. Mais il y a résistance au niveau culturel parce qu'on tient encore au texte religieux. Ça veut dire que personne ne le fait en fait. On le fait rarement. Et il y a la structure familiale est telle qu'il y a une dominance du père et que voilà, c'est lui qui fait une loi et dans la famille, mais une loi en général qui est, elle est patriarcale comme un peu dans tout le monde, mais la particularité au Maroc, c'est qu'elle va trouver légitimité dans le texte religieux. Alors qu'on n'interdit pas en fait le testament, mais il n'est pas pratiqué. Donc au niveau, en tant que militante, il est beaucoup plus opérationnel pour nous de demander tout simplement à la source par le droit que les femmes soient égalitaires en termes de succession et d'héritage. J'espère que j'ai répondu à la question.
Oui, merci beaucoup. Anybody else, please enter your questions into the Q&A if you had anything to ask.
Thank you very much, Afa, for your answer. We have Alison, if you want to say something here. I said you want to speak.
There are two questions in the Q&A.
Yeah, no.
One from...
We have a question from Ava. I think it could be for all the panelists. She asks, are quotas on the table? If in their nations you have quotas. Dorothy, your hand is up.
I haven't understood Eva's question, but my hand was up just because I wanted to add on what Afa answered about the inheritance thing. It's so interesting, but I don't know whether I should first answer Eva's question. I don't know. What can I do? My hand was because I wanted to supplement on Afa. What can I do now? Should I supplement on Afa?
Yeah.
Okay. What Afa said is very interesting. I'm not so surprised that most of the things which happen in Africa, culture-wise, are almost the same. For example, about that thing of inheritance, the question which has been asked, whether the father can decide for the woman or girl to inherit, was so much in the news in Uganda. We had a minister who died in Uganda. And this minister, in his will, he put the daughter as a person who will succeed, who will inherit and succeed everything. So the leaders of the cultural leaders, my God, they said it's impossible. Imagine it is the minister who worked for all these things. He's the minister who is the father of that daughter and is the one who has decided. The laws, the laws don't say that women should not succeed. No, it is the culture. The laws will allow you to succeed or inherit, but the culture will not allow you. So it was a very big thing and a very big discussion. And the people were not even ashamed to decide for the minister. Imagine, he's already dead, and in his will, he's willing for the daughter to succeed, to inherit, but the cultural leaders are saying no. So it is a very big thing. I don't know what we are going to do. It's not that we don't love our culture, we do, but it's so painful for us when it comes to gender justice and inheritance. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dorothy, for compliment with your intervention. I think that maybe Eva asked if their countries, your panelists, talk about the quotas of women in political participation. If it's not like that, Eva, please write again.
That's it. I'm sorry to speak again, because I'm going to give an example of person. I'm so sorry, but I'm going to give an example of a person that Eva knows very well. That person is called Robin Akena Nyonja. Eva knows Robin Akena Nyonja. We have a quota that in a district, there has to be a woman MP for a district. But when Robin stood for that, for another, the danger of quotas in Uganda is that sometimes they don't work. When Robin stood to be an MP for the constituents that allows women and men, they didn't vote for her. And the reasons they gave, they said, you have your own position, which is the district woman MP. And imagine that the whole constituency has 17 other constituencies which you can stand for. But because there is that woman MP thing, she's been told you have your woman MP position, you should stand for that. And that is only one. So they're chasing her away from all those 17 regions to go and fight for only one position. So sometimes those quotas also don't help much. That's why I say that these other laws of women are just not helping. Sometimes they're just on paper. Thank you so much. I'll not speak again.
This is, we here in family, I think that you can put up your hand and speak about and answer the questions that you feel free. Yeah. Then we have another question for Shil Gunstein. She asked, are the Pan-Africa women's organizations? I don't know if you understand the question.
Yes, I can answer. But before I answer that question, just to allude on what Eva had asked about, just like I mentioned in my presentations there, in Kenya, we are still struggling with the two third gender rules. That's why I say we are still trying. It's something that is there, but you know, if we have a constitution and it's not being implemented, then becomes a challenge. So those are some of the things, even with those quotas, it's not working yet. So we need to keep pushing for it. Then on the question about the Pan-Afric, if we have a Pan-Afric women's organization, which is actually one of the Africa's first collective women organization, which has contributed to the struggle for the women continent's liberation, which is very active. And actually we have a Pan-African Women's Day, which is every 31st of July, which is set aside to celebrate and honor the achievements of the African women and advocates for gender equality in Africa. So it's there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucy. I think that this question is for Shil too, is for Afa. She asked, do many women prefer polygamy rather than monogamy? This is the question. Afa, if you can answer this question. You're on mute. Sorry. Okay.
Je ne sais pas si je pourrais répondre de manière rigoureuse à cette forme de question parce qu'elle nécessite que j'ai sous les yeux une étude sociologique claire, mais je ne peux y répondre que par impression pour l'instant. Mais c'est vrai que ça mérite bien qu'on ait peut-être une conférence sur la question. Est-ce que c'est une question de préférence? Je ne pense pas, de préférence des femmes. Je pense que dans une société patriarcale qui est en fait soumise à des lois, il n'est jamais question de se poser la question est-ce que la femme préfère ou pas? Ce que nous savons aujourd'hui, c'est que le droit protège cette préférence de l'homme par des textes et par un texte coranique clair. Maintenant, est-ce que les femmes préfèrent ou pas? En tout cas, la loi marocaine donne aujourd'hui le droit à la femme de dire oui ou non à un mariage. Mais après la question, parce que ça, on ne l'avait pas avant, l'homme pouvait prendre les 3 autres femmes sans la permission des précédentes. Maintenant, il est exigé et l'accord de la première femme de l'accord du juge. Sauf qu'on trouve qu'à 70%, la femme dit oui et le juge dit oui. Et c'est là la réforme en fait. Comment rendre les femmes capacitaires et que veut dire le oui de la femme? Est-ce que ce n'est pas une autre soumission? Parce qu'en fait, les exceptions qui sont accordées par les juges est ce qu'on appelle exceptionnel. Et derrière, en fait, ces mots tout beaux du droit, ce qui est exceptionnel, c'est que l'homme peut aujourd'hui se présenter, dire ma femme, ma première femme, a un cancer. Et donc, je dois me marier. Et ça, moi, en termes de dignité, c'est quelque chose qui révolte quand même. Et donc, voilà, c'est des questions qui fâchent, qui sont épineuses, qu'on peut pas, justement, qu'il faut traiter avec une approche intersectionnelle, comme vous l'avez dit, qui mérite qu'on se penche sur de véritables réformes et de se pencher sur des problèmes de tout le système, en fait. Merci pour la question. Merci de vous être intéressé au sujet.
Thank you very much for you, Afa, for answering this question. I give you the word, Lucy, if you want to respond to that. Your hand is up.
No, oh, sorry, that was from before. But I think I can say something about that in the African context.
Yeah.
Or the Kenyan context, let me say. It's actually a discussion for most women. If you ask yourself as a woman, it's not something personally I would like. Being a second wife, or if I'm married, and then I get a second, a third wife being brought into the picture is not something. But it's a discussion. It's a big topic because everyone keeps saying, you know, the women are less than the men. So, I mean, if we were to start a discussion, it would really be so wide. But I think like in Kenya, you can actually decide whether to be in a mono or in a polygamous marriage. At the moment, is that law. So it's a choice which you can make. But I don't think that is something most women would prefer to have. Or that is me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucy, for sharing with us. We don't have more questions from the box. But if you as a panelist want to share, this is for me, want to share, for example, some actions, even the things that we hear today that as a woman we have to do and empoderate this day. If you want to share with us some actions that we can do today with the information that we get. Can be one or two, and then we conclude this incredible webinar. Wow. Okay. Then, yeah, Lucy.
Yeah, I can say thank you so much to the other panelists and also to the listeners. But I think having heard from the three of us, it's very important that we can see the different challenges that we as African women are facing. So maybe next time we also need to know, are we facing the same challenges the Global South is facing? Is it the same thing the Europeans are facing, or is it that we need to understand, we need to understand, are we at the same levels or not? Because we just shared our part of what the challenges we go through. So we prefer, at least next time, we can also hear from the women from other parts of the world and hear what they face, if we can relate to what we go through.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lucy. Well, before this webinar, I think I can share this with all of you, that for me, this webinar is a clear example of the importance of us women entering in politics, and not just any politics, but green politics that embrace our struggle and fights, and because our society will be more equity and just through actions that materialize in politics, and women occupying positions of influence in our nations. And I want to thanks to our incredible panelists for this devotion, their time to this fight, and for sharing valuable information with us. Also, thanks to all the participants for being here to the end, and for sharing this great event. And thanks to our interpreters, that thank you for being this bridge and for removing all language obstacles, so today we can be unit in the same fight. And not less important, thanks to the Global Greens Women's Network Steering Committee, to Carla, Alison, Julia, Anita, and every single woman who working so hard to make this webinar possible.